Pence doesn't want to come out of his coffin? My God, it's like 5 minutes before we have to go on air. It's a vice presidential debate. It's your job to get him out of his coffin every time. Whenever he has to be in public, your job is to wake him up. You got to go on. You got to incentivize him somehow. Have you donated blood recently? I shouldn't say that. Sorry. Hey, Kamala, how are you? I'm doing good, girl. Just, looking fine as usual. Oh, man. You ever tell you have a great smile? God. National treasure. Welcome to the BenBen Show, everyone. I'm your host, BenBen. This episode of the BenBen Show is sponsored by the Cash App. Do your friends owe you money? Send them a request with the Cash App. Also by Score. Do you like Heath bars? Well, this is better. Same shit though, but better. Tastes less like chemicals. Try Score. You know I did because excellent. Very good. I didn't think that the vice presidential debate would be watched by anyone, and that's somewhat true. I think a lot of people skipped it. They shouldn't have, because it was the best debate so far. Yes, there's only been two, but it was far more substantive, far more interesting, and more surprising. Everyone thought, including myself in the last episode, that Kamala Harris would wipe the floor with Mike Pence. We don't see him speak that much, but we have this general sense of a boring, conservative guy from Indiana with the personality of a sloth. Just not fun. But I have to say, I think Kamala Harris is more of a still shot type of person, and Mike Pence is more of a, he can do some feature films. She's more like shorts and stills and maybe like a 1 minute soundbite. He can kind of go on with some substance. It didn't look that good. It did not look that good for Kamala last night when it came to extending the conversations and answering some of the questions. Both politicians pivoted when it came to presidential mental ability, like the disability of the president, and what circumstances would that happen? Do you have a game plan for if that were to take place? Both of them completely ignored the question, and then eventually Pence answered it. But Kamala never really did, for obvious reasons. Though there is something to say that, at face value, Biden's 78 and Trump is 74. It's not that crazy, but what you clearly see is a ability in terms of mental aptitude and processing skills and off the cuff thinking, at least in terms of speech. Actually, it has to be mental because I feel like Biden's always trying to grasp at something. He can't quite get to it, so it comes out that way. It was like his speech patterns delay the retrieval process to get back in those old spiderweb cabinets to find that answer or find that. It's like my name, what's my name? Joe Biden knows what's up. Joe, I'm the man. The smile he always gives. Joe, you were accused of plagiarism at Delaware and lied about your military record and your academic record. Look, I'm the guy. Yeah, you're the guy that stole and plagiarized. Look, I'm the man. I know. We've accused you. Come on, buddy. It's really good, the deflection, that he's able to do that over and over again. But that debate, the presidential debate, was boring as hell compared to the vice presidential debate. So much interesting stuff going on. Harris has great presence, unquestionably. But when it comes to actually talking about something, it's like she just went to these basic talking points, these democratic axioms of I don't know, empathy, emotionality that don't offer substance. Now, here's the kicker. The people that like the Democratic Party and the Liberal Party that are really, into it, they feed off the empathy, off the, do unto others as you would just be done unto yourselves. This utopian idealism that is parochial and full of indigeneity errors, where statistical accountings of systemic racism are about just one variable, that the wage gap is just one thing. It just involves sexual organs and not about career path and having children and leaving to do X, Y, and Z. None of that. It's just very narrow. Like look at Freddie Gray in Baltimore. Look at Ferguson. Well, yeah, but Ferguson, the Justice Department determined that case was essentially fraudulent from the hands of don't shoot narrative all the way down. In Freddie Gray's situation, some of those cops that arrested him, that put him in the back of the paddy wagon, were his childhood friends. There's no racism involved. The condemnation of which is kind of odd, considering that the entire city is full of African American people in power, from the mayor to the police commissioner on down. It's a false narrative kind of applying that way. And then, if there is racism, why are so many black-owned businesses being burned? Well, why would you do that? It's not a way to protest. Like, why would you hurt your own community like that? And I don't like saying things like this because it's like very superficial. Like Apple Music only allowing you to listen to black musicians with black music, quote unquote black music. It certainly was no rock and roll with black guitarists and black bassists. It was all like hip hop stuff, which is kind of racist in itself, implying that that's what black music is. It's part of it, but your skin color doesn't define you. And that's kind of the way the Democratic Party likes to do things, rightly or wrongly. The superficial characteristics that evoke prejudicial thoughts are at risk. It's wrong to judge people based on the way they look. But then they do this thing where they celebrate you just on the way you look. That Kamala Harris, whom Pence congratulated, being the first black vice president nominee in our nation's history. That's wonderful. Doesn't mean much. Her track record in California is not very progressive. As much as she likes to tout it, she kind of ignores a couple things. One of which are her marijuana convictions, which are amongst the highest in the nation, going after petty marijuana convictions, charges against people, putting them in prison, jail for marijuana possession. That's horrible. It's not very progressive. Also, the denial of DNA evidence and capital murder cases involving black defendants. She was trying to block the admission of that evidence that would exonerate these people that are on death row or spending their life in prison. Why would she do that? That's not progressive either. Again, I'm not trying to be biased. There's a lot of things that Pence could have done better in that debate. I don't love the religious side of things. I know that's speaking to the base, but it's just as superficial as talking about making blanketed statements like this is racist or this is this and this is that, or had Biden and Harris been in power during the COVID crisis earlier on, they would have saved 240,000 American lives or something like that. But the most interesting thing is when swine flu hit in 2009, 60 million Americans contracted that. 60 million. In proportion, 2 million Americans would have died if it was as dangerous as the COVID virus. And that type of math, unfortunately, as substantive and important as that is, I don't think it conveys well. I don't think people give a shit that like Biden. In fact, I don't even think, they don't care about Biden. They just don't like Trump. So it's a very tough position to be in. Get the mail-in ballots, which are just almost designed to say, listen, 2016, we should have won that thing. How did we not win? I agree. How did they not win? Because millennials have this odd, and I don't know, like, not just millennials, a lot of people, they're willing to riot. They're willing to go out to squares, to say in public, to denigrate, oh, Trump's awful. When it comes to invoking their right as United States citizens to vote for the president in the general election, they're lazy, they don't feel like it. So mail-in voting is, it's the next step. In fact, in the future, if this country becomes a socialist republic with kind of this guise of democracy still existing, which I think is where we're going, not because of the Democratic Party, so to speak, but like automation. So many people are going to be out of jobs and have to relearn skills. There's going to be this huge gap period where either it's going to be permanent or there's going to have to be universal minimum wage to supplement as people learn coding and HTML and JavaScript and C++. It's going to be as basic as learning like your ABCs. It just seems like it has to be. There's too much that AI can do to basically wipe the slate of blue-collar jobs and white-collar jobs. You're an analyst at Goldman Sachs. You think you're relevant when you have a computer that can like use quantum theory to analyze net present values and like a multitude of different variable situations in live time and apply probability weights and to those different outcomes, and then come to like almost using kind of like Black-Scholes theory and options trading, using kind of like a parameter to say, or this is the top end, this is the low end. So you can basically guarantee yourself, cut risk out in certain situations, and guarantee to make yourself a spread by betting both sides up and down. We can't compete with a computer that could do the same processing skills in like a millisecond and do them multitude times over. That's scary. So it affects everyone. The AI and technology isn't necessarily a good thing. Ted Kaczynski might have been right about his technological manifesto about what technology is in terms of we now become so dependent on it, we can't live without it, and it almost empowers this slave mentality. And it's very scary. But intelligence quotients are going down in this country. The very idea that we have to have more mail-in voting now because of the COVID crisis, and that might stay on and be a thing we keep after the COVID crisis, is crazy. How lazy can you be? I mean, it's you want to do something with your vote to change the outcome of the election, you go to a voting booth like everyone else. You get involved with your community. It's crazy that you would just, what are you doing, man? I'm texting, and then I'm gonna like open this app and I'm gonna vote and play some Fortnite. Dude, you probably like vote with Twitter in the future. Yes, there is a fear of fraud there. I think it's interesting. Kamala said, if the CDC officials and the World Health Organization agree with a vaccine, she's gonna take it. She's gonna accept that. But if Trump says that there's a vaccine that people should take, she's not gonna do it. And I'm like, what if they're not mutually exclusive? They're not gonna be, because Trump's following the CDC guidelines. He doesn't know remdesivir or monoclonal antibodies. He doesn't know anything about this stuff. He just does what his doctors tell him to do. I think it's crazy that his presidential fitness in terms of his health was questioned because he had to go to the hospital as a precaution when he was tested positive for the COVID virus. It said, oh, no, he's old and that's why he had to go. No, any president would have gone. A 37-year-old John F. Kennedy would have gone. This is standard protocol. It's the right thing to do. It's so weird. And then they were able to take that point, Biden's camp, and say, okay, so I'm old and I have health issues. Now let's bring Trump down to my level. Like, see, he had to go to the hospital too. Context is everything, but they try to simplify it. Just saying, objectively, that's kind of gross. It's playing this very manipulative game. The Rose Garden event was interesting too. The criticism for it being like the kind of like this sort of holocaust of pandemic spreading. And I don't like to use that term. I probably shouldn't, but you get what I'm saying. Like this kind of like this giant mixing bowl of evil and selfishness by allowing by having kind of this is also another thing that the Democrats do. They take responsibility away from the individual, which I don't really like. Like, you don't know about how to handle your health, and so we're going to do it for you, which Pence mentioned a million times in this debate. Like, he wants to give people freedom to make choices about their future, and Joe Biden and Mike Pence want to like control your future, control your ability to make decisions, really box you in. The Green New Deal and everything else, to cut your discretionary spending by losing, the tax cuts go down and blah, blah, blah. And then she countered by saying that 400,000 people making $400,000 or less will not be. But there is this strange element of, hey, you don't know. You have to be told, or we have to write a law saying you have to wear a mask, and that you can be thrown in jail if you don't. That's not very democratic. But anyway, Pence did not get the the COVID virus with his wife at the Rose Garden event. He was around everyone else, Hope Hicks and all the likes. He did not get it. Not to say that wasn't the time at which it happened, but it is apropos to my point. People chose to be there. Your job wasn't on the line. You didn't have to go. You could have worn a mask. You could have not gone. You could have elected to not sit in the crowd and stand further away. Just saying, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. or rather, it's not your fault, Donald Trump. It's not your fault to say, like, actually, let me rephrase that. Your choice is your own decisions. If you want to engage in a kind of a party outside as agreed to by the CDC and sit down and you get the virus, you get the virus, whatever. The Biden camp takes this thing that's like, if you were to do that as an ordinary citizen, we're going to make sure the police come to your house, take your children away with Child Family Services, and cite you $10,000. That type of weird thing I don't like. Again, I know I sound really like one-sided. I don't want to be. I did mention that whole opening was about how rigid Pence is, but he kind of came across as a nice grandpa during the debate. I liked him. I don't know. And he did congratulate her on her historic achievement of being chosen as the first vice president that's of African American descent. I think that's nice. I think it was funny that Kamala took the health issue about disclosure and then used it to go into the taxes, which I think is hilarious. And it's abundantly clear Trump didn't only pay $750 in taxes. Looking at his depreciation on assets, he spent millions of dollars in taxes. Looking at his loans, you can't have assets of X, Y, and Z. Some people said, oh, he took out a loan for $100 million in 2012. It implies he's not a billionaire. No, it doesn't. How do you ever get a $100 million loan if you didn't have some assets in the vicinity of at least, I don't know, 50% loan to value, 60% loan to value, right? So that was just one part of one building that he owns in his entire portfolio. It's complete nonsense. I don't know why they do that. It's not about what's right or true. I wish it was true. So they had like legitimate fire, like everything they seem to do seems to be a propaganda way of like kind of attacking your delicate sensibilities about what's right and wrong. Like, do you want a president that pays only $750 in taxes? Do you pay that? I'm like, well, I have a question. Do I want a president who pays more than he should? It sounds like he's a moron. Do I want a president that doesn't that can afford it, that doesn't hire like CPAs or top tier and like kind of create a situation where he can shield himself from paying unnecessary taxes as a private citizen before he was ever thinking about running for president? Like, of course not. You want a guy that's a killer. You want a guy who's just right there and is smart, on the point. I love that Trump was doing his speeches from the presidential offices at Walter Reed. Again, kind of exemplifying that the whole point of him being there was just precautionary, nothing more. So yeah, I'm excited about the next debate. I'm very excited about it. I mentioned in the last podcast, it was very interesting that Trump got COVID exact right time for his quarantine to allow him to participate in the next presidential debate without any complication of pushing it off. What Biden does now, I don't know. Maybe he'll feel like I don't feel 14 days from now, I don't feel comfortable. And then Trump will just retort with, hey, I'll put myself in a quiz show box. I'll surround me with plastic, whatever. Do you want me to wear a hazmat suit? I don't care. He's like, I guess Biden can only, he prepared for months, I guess, for that debate, or he's worried about it. Like, he did so well, you can only go down from here. I could see that. He was so much better than Trump in that debate. Trump was playing this attacking game, and it really played into the Democrats' position of, look, this is a bully. He's not presidential. And then at the same token, Pence played kind of the Biden role, and it worked really well. So that's something to consider. Like, just Biden can't do better. So I don't know what the game plan is. I really don't know what they plan to do. I do see the interesting tactic of telling people there's no point in voting, essentially. Or if you're voting for Trump, you're voting for a loser. Look at the polls. This confirmation bias, like, why would you want to be part of the losers? Or why vote if it's pointless? Look at how far ahead Biden is. That type of campaign has served only one purpose: to keep you from bothering, to keep you from trying. It's the same thing with McDonald's. $1 billion hamburgers sold. I'll have one. I want to be part of the popular crowd, right? Everyone does. It's just a way of life. It's just the way it is. I want to be part of that group that's winning. I just sit in line at a voting booth to vote for a loser? No. It's fair, but But at its core, that rhetoric is manipulative. I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay. Let's go on to some like lighter stuff. I don't know. According to Snapple Facts, twins have a high occurrence of left-handedness. Also, masturbating in public and spitting on gingers. If this has happened to you, please contact the BenBen Show. We'd love to have you on and talk about it. It's a great anecdote to share. I thought it would be funny looking at a naked homeless man. Well, he might not have been homeless. Who knows? Don't want to judge. My apologies. A naked, very hairy, like you think he's wearing clothes, hairy, kind of like some sort of like one of those, I don't know, furry things that women, like a shawl with like some sort of weird like faux fur that's like very spiky. Fat guy at 7-Eleven at the gas station, rising from a crouch position, and it reminded me of the Terminator. And I was just like, what if he thinks in his head that every time he gets up from his crouch naked, that he's just like, come back from the future, and he just smiles, and he just thinks he looks like this robust, powerful, I was about to say sexy, that's kind of weird, muscular guy. But from everyone else's standpoint, he just looks like a fat, hairy baby. I think that would be funny. I don't know. Rihanna got in trouble by mentioning the Prophet Muhammad in inappropriate light. It was interesting. In Islam, it's considered forbidden to use Allah's name impolitely. The Hadith is a record of Muhammad's words and actions. It's like the beginning of the Quran, or separate of the Quran, excuse me. Rihanna's followers kind of reminded her about this, and she apologized, which I think is interesting. I think it's interesting that, children at one high school said, I'm not going to play for this football team today unless you change the name of Robert E. Lee High School. But at the same time, no one talks about Aisha, Trump's or Muhammad's seventh wife. Forgive me, like 3 hours of sleep last 2 nights. Just submitted a screenplay to a whole film project. So we'll see how that works out. I had analyzing it really carefully, going through each thing. I had to do the budget, had to do a synopsis for each primary production team member, their biography. I had to go through the timeline from pre-production all the way down. It was just I wanted to make sure everything was right when I submitted it. So exciting, we'll see. It's called Covet, great film. Yeah, it's completely separate from it's about this guy named Adam who is abused as a child. What witnesses his mother being killed by his father, and then has the opportunity to save someone who's also young when he gets older. And the question is his perception of what he sees as an adult real, or is it biased based on his childhood? And is he making a grave error and condemning certain people later on in the movie and saying, nah, you're hurting this person, or is that all warped in his head? I think it's very interesting. So excited about it. It's called Covet. I have a small little bit with me in it on Instagram, YouTube. Yeah, it's exciting. So we'll see. I don't know. I always wanted to be a movie star, Just do my little Tom Cruise. Oh, my Tom Cruise things. I for whatever reason I wanted to talk about Tom Cruise right before the debate the other night. It was Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, and the next Mission Impossible. Speaking to Simon Pegg's character, his sidekick, who's inept and not capable of all the cool things Ethan Hunt can do. Here's Ethan. Did you know that a hippopotamus can hold its breath for 5 minutes underwater? And Simon Pegg's what do what is the plural? What do hippofacts have to do with our situation right now, not drowning? And then Ethan goes to camera, he's like, I can hold my breath for a week. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so that was that. And then my next quote, my next tweet, retarded, was, what is it? Come on, where is it? Oh, shit. It's, okay, so basically, Tom Cruise is at a one-legged race with his son at their high school. He realizes he's losing the race because of his son. He takes out a Bowie knife from his left lift/boot, he's a short guy, cuts his son loose, and sprints off into the distance, winning the race. Never to be heard from again. That'd be funny. I hope Tom Cruise is one of those guys that accepts that like people can make fun of him and still be big fans. I mean, I always want to do a video like that where a guy's like losing a race and he's just like, no, Tom Cruise it! Better. You always win that. I mean, it's just like cutting through the wind or something. And it's funny that he plays different characters, but no one's ever said, hey, Tom. You know, I'll do like a director like, Tom, darling. Your last film, you ran, and just now in this take, you can we maybe? No, Tom Cruise runs like this. Okay, sure. Whatever you say, Tom. Whatever you say. I think that I don't know. Everything comes up in my head. Everything I say in my head, I tell you to myself. I like talk to myself when I'm alone. I think it would be funny if everything, every little thing, cuties. Texas State sues Netflix or something, or the makers of Cuties, which is about like that John Benet Ramsey pageantry thing with kids. It's a social commentary against the sexualization of children, and somehow Texas was able to sue. I mean, it's interesting. I thought it was interesting. Also, President Trump had different things about him during the stay at Walter Reed that were like contradictory. You have two different news stories come out right at the same time from objective, non-CNN, non-Fox News outlets saying like, according to source, Trump's vitals are very concerning. And the other thing is, right at the same time, Trump may be discharged from the hospital as soon as tomorrow. It's really frustrating when you talk about like the libel laws against reporters that don't exist anymore. You can actually have reporting from a source that's protected that you theoretically could make up and never get in trouble for. Well, what's the parameters of that? How do you not like lie sometimes and you're like, you know, a writer and you're just like, oh, I've got nothing, Carol. Why don't you just say like from a reliable source and come up with a stuff? I can do that? Well, who's gonna know? I'm thinking about that girl that was like the secretary in Ghostbusters when I'm doing that little voice, like hey, Spangler, you got a phone call. I don't know that voice. I don't know what is that? Is it Brooklyn? I don't know. I don't know what that is. I thought about William Dafoe from The Lighthouse, his little monologue, the one where he's just at camera talking for at least like 5 minutes, like, and thou shalt know about the sea and the monsters therein. I think it'd be funny if he was at the airport and they didn't have like an aisle seat and he was like forced to sit at the window and something just clicked in his head. He felt cameras on him, maybe by people nearby. He's very expressive. His face is great. You know, it's great for the Joker. You should play Joker. And he just went off on that monologue. I think it'd be fucking hilarious. One of the criticisms I have about interviews in general, celebrities, people in the media, is how biased the interviewer is when they're like sitting down with someone. There's always like two different versions of there's the combative interviewer and the friendly situation where the interviewee is part of the crowd. You see this with Tucker Carlson. You see this with everyone does it. MSNBC. Rick Santorum, by the way, that guy, dude, stop going on CNN and being a panelist for the Republican Party. You are used as a puppet. If you can't find a way to make money or like get some like press somewhere else, dude, they bring you on to look like a fucking idiot because it makes you appear as though you're the representative of the Republican Party and all of them are babbling dunces. That's the only reason they bring you on. The only reason, dude. Totally stop going on that show. You must have something to offer someone else somewhere to make some extra money, get some more press, to push a book. Do some stuff with talk to Ann Coulter or something and see if you can like do something. She might feel sorry for you because you're just not talented on that show. You need someone to like talk to you. Now, no offense. Like you're doing a disservice to a lot of people by opening your mouth, and you need some coaching or some shit. Like just okay. All right. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. So the Tucker Carlson version. He doesn't like you. Again, I don't practice this impression at all. I didn't practice it for this podcast, so forgive me if it's off. I know Tucker. He lived on the same street as me at one point. One of the streets where the protesters came and knocked on his house. Beautiful house. Way cooler than my house. But anyways, Tucker here over there. I just like a weird name dropped. So, Tucker. So, as I understand it, you were talking to Carol Johnson at your school, 12th grader, a white girl, saying that she should be told the stuff about how awful her family is for being white and all the slaves that they likely owned. I just want to ask you, Carol's family is black. They're mixed race. They have lighter skin, but they weren't slaveholders. They're Nigerian. How do you explain that, and why haven't you apologized? And there's the look. There's a like everything you say is just like what? Like it's like a pigeon listening to the phone ring, like. And then he'll cut you off. If you say anything intelligible, it's like, oh, okay. So I guess it's just like you're racist. You don't want to. Okay. Well, let's move on. Come on. We don't have time. I don't have time for this, sir. Okay, we have to move on. He does that. It's this staccato to cut you off and like get you off your point, especially if you're rolling, because it doesn't serve the purpose of the show. Because any soundbite where it exists in the media where he looks like he's off or being dominated does not serve his purposes. And so cutting you, the staccato, the Trump-Biden move, is one way of doing it. But if Tucker likes you, he does something more like, this is the interviewee, and I don't know, I saw my sister, and she was putting on, she was looking good one day at the pool, and I went up to her and I said, hey, will you marry me? And so she said yes, and that's what happened. So now I'm married to my sister, and this is Tucker, the whole time. Makes sense. Beautiful woman, great. Can we have her on sometime? Yeah. I guess she come on the show. Great, it's great. Love to meet your sister, your wife. Excuse me. So it's just so much different dealing with a friendly. It's the reason why Trump only goes on Fox and Friends, because he just doesn't want to deal with. It's exhausting trying to have someone like AOC type person talk over you, ask you a question and almost start talking as if they're answering for you, and then when you try to elaborate at all, why do you hate the environment? Excuse me, I'm talking. It's just like, what? But the way our limbic system, resonance systems, and the media work, you take that one little clip and you just spread it out all over, and people are like, oh my God, she's just got him. She got him. But then you just realize the whole interview is like, what color is your dog? Shut up! It's like, what? Oh man, I don't know. I think there is a thing. I really do admire people. I want to talk about my project, my film project. It's one thing to be creative and to come up with a story and to create dialogue and then to actually go to the film set and produce a product from collaborating with multiple people who have a different idea of what your original thoughts were in your screenplay and in your mind and the storyboards and the editing process of what this was going to be when you wrote it, and then what it is when you film it, and what you have to work with based on your budget. There's all of that. And then there's just the process of like the numbers and the money, like specifically for X, Y, and Z, or begging someone before they even see anything. And they don't read your 150-page screenplay. They don't care. They read like the abstract. Like trying to like, just please let me do this. Not, you believe in it. You're solipsistic. You're so certain that it's going to be good. You don't know. It's complete delusion in your head of just confidence and having a general good comportment about you. Like, I worked really hard, but you can work really hard on something and suck at it until you get better. You could be at stage 4 of stages 1 to 50, and you're not where it's supposed to be successful yet. I think that's why people, when they're like, they finally get praise for something they've done, they worked at it without wanting the praise. You don't go into writing or go into film saying, I just want to make money and sell out. You do it because you love it. So that finally when these third parties that you didn't care what their opinion was in the first place, most of which the third parties in your circle said, dude, go to law school. Are you crazy? You don't make any money doing that. And they finally, when Charlie Rose or someone who's not, life is not ruined by the Me Too movement, some interviewer, Rachel Maddow interviews her for some reason. And she's like, God, that was so, how did you come up with that? It was such a good, it was so good. Oh my God. Abortion on Christmas Eve? How do you come up with that in the book? It's definitely Louis C.K. So, but everyone steals, right? Your brain is just so exhausted from failure or from just like trial and error or things you have projects you even thought were better that just for whatever reason someone hasn't adopted and made it commercially successful because of like a budget or they haven't marketed it, you didn't have the money to do so. So when you get these bizarre questions like you're supposed to be this prima donna, like, it's just, these ideas just float in my head. I can't help it. It's fake. Like the whole thing, like with celebrities, like talking about like, we met and do you know like penguins, like they take a pebble and they push it and then like that's a form of love and then they're mate forever. It's from like a pebble exchange. That was us. He was on the beach using a conch seashell to ask Poseidon if he could make the waves bigger for his surfing competition next day. And I saw him and I was just like, wow, guy is so ripped. But has a big dick too. And then someone just got hitched right then and there. Yeah, I paid a priest who was on vacation with his family $100,000 to give us our give us our marriage, give us our sanctity. It's not like that. It's something. It's grueling. The lazy luxury thing. I don't know. It's almost like a way of culling competition. The celebrity of just being like glamorous. It's not real. It's brutal. Brutal. Wow, did I rub my face just then and it looks so red? See, makeup, right? And if I had any budget for this show, makeup, there'd be like tape on my eyes like this sometimes, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired. So it's fake. It's designed to give a suspension of disbelief about how brutal this world is to the person that's on the other end of the camera, you watching. So I hope that people realize that when they like look at film, they appreciate that these people do work as hard as everyone else. And like, you're a school teacher, you're a doctor, you're a janitor, whatever you're doing. It's just a different way of working, and it's exhausting. And part of the end product of selling it, whether that's a TV show, a small little clip, or an Instagram bit trying to sell like advertising through clicks, and that makes you look glamorous, it's all fake. It's all fake. We're all filled with self-doubt, and we're unsure about like ourselves and like what our future holds, and like how much we suck or gonna suck, or like will we ever give up? Like will there ever be a point where like just don't have the energy anymore? And that even the idea of that is scary. But we all face this uncertainty and fear. We're all part of the same like group. We're no better than anyone else, and I think that's that's a reassuring thing that we should kind of like espouse and kind of instill in other people. Like it gives, if you look at it from another perspective, it's like, I'm no better than you. I just kept going. I sucked as much as you've sucked at times. And I just kept figuring out what I'm good at, and I looked at what I was bad at, and I just improved and got better at both. And then, now I have a Lambo and a 22-year-old Russian girlfriend who's 5'10" and legs go up to here. Whatever, I'm just kidding. Whatever. Maybe I'm not. But whatever you're into, whatever you want, it's okay. It's okay to doubt yourself and to feel a failure going along to the end product. And the people that show their end product that looks like, oh my God, they've quote unquote made it, are constantly as scared as you are when you haven't made it, that it's all going to end for them and they'll be right back where they were, wondering what's the point. Like Kevin Federline or Charlie Rose. By the way, the guy's tall as hell. I was at the Curb Enthusiasm Broadway show. Basically like an episode of Curb Enthusiasm, Larry David, a fish out of water. I swear, I'm 6'6". 6'6". I feel like he was like here. I felt like I was like, hey, Charlie. Hey. He was so big. And part of it, I think, is he was wearing this overcoat that was just like, it gave him some width. He was wearing a suit, obviously. He's a very, very conservative, dashing man. And then the overcoat just like gave him this width, like, okay, not only is he just really tall, but he's this big, and it just makes him look even taller. It helps give him some like balance. I'm just like, what? Who are you? I never like because he comes across as such a sweetheart on TV, but he's like this giant, and he might be like a wide build guy, maybe not muscle. Who knows? He's under this giant suit. One frustrating thing about suits is that these suits don't like really exemplify like how healthy you are, how much muscle, what you do at the gym, whatever. It's kind of the point. So you're working so much, trying to provide for your family and make money, or you want to look presentable. It's going to hide all that. It's one of the interesting things about making things custom made. I'm like, well, you don't make them for someone. You want to have a uniform that will give the impression that someone looks good when they're completely a lard ass, because that's the point. So the other side of that is the suits now that like sprayed on, where you can see like the wrinkles in the back of the knee, like there's just the pant leg is just so tight, it's like jeans. That looks retarded to me too. It's not what a suit's supposed to be. And I don't think it particularly looks good. Like it's supposed to be straight lines. Like suits are not supposed to be like that. My opinion. Like the Tom Ford, James Bond look. A lot of those scenes that James Bond is sponsored by Tom Ford in those movies. But even then, the suits are not even real. He has these clips that he has in the back of his suit in different points to look even tighter than the suit could possibly be to be wearable. All for camera. Now, it's like, well, so that means that suits are not flattering. No. The purpose of the film is to make him look athletic. They want to showcase those things even in the suit. But Ralph Fiennes' dress, for example, I think is way cooler in those movies where he's the new M. I think he's the new M. Or he's one of the like, upper people. Way cooler. Way cooler. Speaking of that, I hate all these movies where you push back to 2021. The mask thing, that's not going away. That's next year too. Unemployment benefits and stuff like that, like that's gonna be a thing. People you have all these real estate investment trusts that like don't get rent from people because they've stayed until the end of December. What do you think they're gonna be able to pay then? They weren't able to pay June. Some people have businesses based off that. There's this huge group of people that are can't get another apartment because they owe so much in rent it's gonna kill their credit score, and they're people waiting on the payment saying, oh well, you'll get your payments in the beginning of January when we remove the eviction moratorium. Like, how? 90% of millennials don't have $5,000 in savings. Do you think if they had $25,000, do you think they'd still have it now since March? No. Well, it'd be really frugal, I guess. But it's tough. It's tough. This world we live in, this whole thing doesn't end. And I do worry Kind of digging rock stars right now. I'm trying them out. Taste-wise, nice mix. You can't really. One of the worst ones. If you have bangs all the time, you really get old of. Like they get tired. Like, Citrus Twist, Star Punch, or Star Blast, isn't it? I like the Froze Rosé. I think they call it Froze. Whatever. I like it. Just like eventually they all taste the same. But you got to mix these things up. Caffeine dosis, caffeine syndrome from having over 1 gram of caffeine per day is a thing. But it raises prolactin levels, causes cortisol spikes, causes hair loss probably, bad skin. This is the reason why all my friends who are lawyers look like complete shit. Overworked, drinking at night, and taking shit like this because their lives suck. Just so that they can put their kids in private school and continue the cycle. Isn't it funny the delusion you have? It's like, oh, life's amazing, and then you go to law school and then you realize you're your dad. You're like, fuck, I want to be Dickie Greenleaf from Talented Mr. Ripley. I'm Mary March. Go to Mangi Bello, baby. Americano, Americano, no, 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 no. Sorry. Isn't it weird that the Priest movie on HBO, the new movie, like the new show, The Young Priest, is now followed up by a different show called The New Priest with John Malkovich, but Jude Law is still in it? So weird. He had like a coma or something. I stopped watching it a little bit because it got like I was going through like a period where I didn't want to see something too dramatic, and I constantly saw this guy who was just surrounded by like sexual proclivities of other people, and he was abstaining, and I just felt like as tight as I felt like I had taken a bunch of laxatives, had Mexican food, and I was just like, oh, how do you not want to just fuck that girl? She wants you so bad. Sorry. It just felt like so overwhelming. Like, oh my god, there's another model walking by, and you're just like, do you want to play Scrabble? Yeah, I'd love to play Scrabble with you and suck your dick. Unfortunately, I can't. Or there's one great line Jude Law has in it. It's like the princess or queen of Finland or something. She's like staring at him. She's like good looking, kind of looks like Bjork mixed with. Yeah, like Bjork mixed with Monica Bellucci. Maybe that's what she kind of looked like. She's just like staring at him during this like, I don't know, like moment of silence, and he's like, he just notices at the corner of his eye, like, I know that I'm incredibly handsome. Can we forget about that for right now? I'm just like, And I think there's even a sequence where he like pretends to like have sex with her in his head. He definitely has his moment. Oh my god! I remember once seeing like this woman up against the wall. It's like Californication meets the Vatican. So she's like naked, getting just railed by this guy. I think they were having trouble having children, and somehow through divine intervention and really naughty sex, he's watching them just like this woman's body up against the glass, clearly getting just railed from behind by her boyfriend or something, and he's just thinking, God, give them a baby. And it just happens. But you as the viewer just like, dude, like what am I? Is this like real sex after dark? What is this? This is so weird. It just made you feel this so much angst. So I stopped watching. Not because of Jude Law. I think Jude Law's amazing. He's like one of my favorite actors. Daniel Day-Lewis, Jude Law. Now I'm just name dropping. I don't know them. I tweet to them sometimes. Hey Jude, would you like to go to Mangi Bello with me? God, it's back then. Do you know, like, in that movie, the Patricia Highsmith play, by the way, the movie, the story of that is better than the actual Patricia Highsmith version, which is too explicit and obvious. Sometimes in screenplays this happens. It's like the book version of that screenplay would be so much better. If it's not derived, if they just converted it to a book. something that I thought about a lot of things. I love film, but sometimes you're just writing, you're like making these unfulfilled screenplays, and it's like, why don't I write a book? Because you have this like pipe dream of like making it a movie. When the most likely thing is going to happen is you're going to get an option, not most likely if you're lucky, and you're not going to be part of it at all. And someone's like, take your idea, take your baby, and just like punch it in the face. And then you see it come out, and everyone's like, dude, your movie. I'm like, it's not my fucking movie. I sold out, all right? I don't know what the fuck that piece of shit is, but it's not what I thought about in my head. My God. Her name's Jessica. She changed to Isabel. What the fuck? God. And then you think, wait a minute. Did I get points in the back end? Sweet. Sweet. Always get points in the back end. Always. Do as best you can to get points. It's key. Also, people in film, learn, or in general, know the difference between gross and net. Very important, especially with revenue sharing. You do not want to deal with some asshole that like takes your gross, which cuts down on your costs. So you have the product you make. So you make a Twizzler, and sell it for $1, but it costs $50 to make. That's great. That's your gross. You get 50 cents. But then there's all these costs to like sell it, to send it to share some profit revenue with the store that's selling it for you. The distribution costs, handling, shipping, marketing. They take your gross. All you get is the net. So they're taking another piece of the pie. No. The percentage, if they go high in the gross, is going to fuck you over. Always talk about the net. So it's one of those things, as I was talking about the other day about podcasts, there's a really weird thing, like they see, like these agencies, see if you start having followers at all, they like, you're talented or something, in any degree, they say, oh, no, we're gonna help you, we're gonna like, give you distribution and everything. Golden handcuff you, if you will, like Joe Rogan a la Spotify. Like, we think you're amazing. We're gonna make sure that we control every way of your reach going forward. Mind you, it's come December, maybe January 1st, you can't see Joe Rogan unless you're on Spotify. I mean, half the country doesn't have a Spotify. I think the algorithm for Spotify in terms of music sucks. The compression algorithm, AAC, is way better for Apple. And then, I don't know what title, lossless, I haven't tried it. Maybe I should. See what that sounds like. But I've listened to Spotify songs, 2 different versions. I'm not a fan. So why would I don't think you can do a la carte, like just buy the Joe Rogan show. The whole point of it is like, people were like having this optionality in terms of like watching a show and then like just listening to it, and the medium worked, and that's how podcasting became famous. And you just went on YouTube, which is like the MySpace, like in terms of like video, it's like MySpace with Facebook. It's clean, it's nice, it works, it's open source, it's just there. You just plug your stuff up and it's good. There's this idea of this like selling, trying to be Joe Rogan, trying to do that, and someone just like buys your stuff, convincing that you're going to be famous. They buy the rights to everything. Your content, your name, you can't, and then they don't really do anything for you. You don't want to do that. Like, you have to be very careful about whenever you're selling your contracts and stuff like this. Do get a lawyer. Do be careful about stuff like that, because it's not, these people don't not want to make money. And the whole purpose of investing in you is they want complete control, and they want to hedge their bets. Like, there's 25 unicorns. Let's buy all of them. One of them is going to work out. If we buy them cheap, woo, we're good. Offsets the cost of all the rest of them, right? I bought Enron stock, I bought WorldCom, and then I bought Facebook. No, Facebook took you to the promised land. You don't have to worry about those other ones, provided you weighted your investments accordingly. You're good. That's what they do. That's what everyone does. Sometimes when I'm at the gym and I have like an energy drink, I don't finish it until I'm like halfway through my workout, and I realize it's kind of like pointless. Kind of want to gulp it down. I say like half of it in the first 15 minutes. You shouldn't work out more than an hour and a half lifting heavy weights ever, because it's crazy. It's counterproductive. Also, you want to have a life, and you don't want to make this mental handicap where you're like, oh, I have to go to the gym for an hour and a half. You're not really interested in it, and you just have these large amounts of time. You're just like, ugh, Really, is that my life? You don't want that for yourself. I don't want that for you. I want you to be happy with you, and if you're so inclined to go to the gym and eat Brussels sprouts or something that I've been doing recently, which is, I think it could be today, have like a 5,000 or 6,000 calorie day. I'm not trying to really lose weight. Enjoy that 5,000 or 6,000 calorie day and not eat tomorrow. Problem with it, last weekend, I wanted to watch the Redskins game and eat nachos, and I messed it up so that Saturday was my no eat day, or Saturday was my big eat day, and then Sunday comes around and football's on TV and I can't eat anything. Like, what the fuck? It's basically a giant eating disorder. And the frustrating thing is that the more work you're doing, like people are like, just diet's hard when you work like 70, 80, 90 hours a week. Like that's really hard to do because your brain needs fuel. It works off glucose, a lot of it. And some parts of your brain can't convert. So you really you need to how do you balance those calories? One of the best ways to do it, in my opinion, is to have these massive calorie days. And it kind of carries you into the next day. Next day you have coffee, have some lettuce, maybe a bowl of popcorn or something, that's it. You're good. It just carries you along. Very, very nice. Oh, what else is going on? You want to talk about something else? I like this quote from Nabokov. Death's shame and its vulgar inequality. I like that phrasing. Hunter S. Thompson, for all moments of beauty, many souls must be trampled. For any of you watching, as I mentioned this a little bit earlier, the way life works is that friction is a requirement for anything. To really appreciate the good times, you have to have the bad. To move forward, you have to have friction. You have to have this negative energy going backwards to push and propel the forward inertia. It's just the way it is. You'd have no concept of what goodness is without bad, without hard times. People talk about simulation theory like Elon Musk. One of the interesting things that I think about is he says the substrate outside of this reality must be incredibly boring because why else would we join the simulation? I think, it might be more complicated than that. Think of it, what if it's absolute bliss? For someone to really appreciate heroin, they have to have some shitty shit going outside of the heroin binge, right? To want to do it. Think about that. It's a really, really fucked up example, but you get what I'm saying. If it's, you have no precept of what loss is or what love truly, you start to lose it. I think, what if all of us, we go to this beautiful place and we have, like Alan Watts says, all the dreams and pleasures we could possibly want. But then we are self-aware. We know that we can't truly appreciate that realm, that love, without reminding ourselves of the strife of being what it's like to be human, where we learn our lessons on this planet or wherever else we get to go and choose to go to learn lessons about, our souls and our, for our future, eternal selves, empathy, love, kindness. I believe this stuff. My fiance passed away. I believe that could be psychosomatic, but I believe that there's these elements of this. Things don't end here, and it's supposed to be difficult at times. Self-pity is the worst thing you could have. You should feel it and go through it because you have to understand that's part of the process of frustration in anything. Whether you lose someone or you're working on a project or at work and you're unhappy, you could be making tens of millions of dollars a year, but in the end you just can't stand it and you hate yourself. Or you lose someone and think that there's no happiness for you, there's no reason for living, and that there's nothing good will ever happen. You hate yourself. But self-pity will ultimately eat you up and leave nothing left. It will leave nothing. It consumes everything. You go through the process of that, and then eventually you I hope you come to the realization that purpose is still there and things you can do to be happy, and that if you have dreams and goals, outside the idea of losing the love of your life, which is the worst possible thing, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. It's the worst feeling in the world, especially if it was sudden and unexpected, horrible. If you have a goal, if you want to make movies, if you want to be a writer, if you want to make people laugh at your own expense, if you want to entertain people for the rest of your life and just write, and create. Do you want to be an investment banker? Whatever it is. The pain and suffering is part of it. Because when you get little bits of success, they're so sweet. And one day, I hope for everyone, one day you wake up and you look yourself in the mirror and you realize that you want nothing else in life, that you are content. I wish that for everyone. It's a wonderful feeling. All right, take care. Bye, guys.